Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. We are at this passage by way of Prajnaparamita. Buddhas of the past, present, and future attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So previously, Shifu has explained a little bit of what Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi means. Basically, what it means to be a Buddha. But we only scratched the surface. To talk about the Buddha or what the Buddha can do, what are the powers of the Buddha, we can spend a whole year talking about it. There's just so much information in the Buddhist literature. But we're not going to do that. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the following lectures. Now, it says Buddhas of the past, present, and future. So that means there have been Buddhas in the past. And there's, of course, the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, which is the Buddha of our world. Now, the Buddha of our world has entered parinirvana, which means that we don't see them. We don't see him anymore. But his Dharma, his teaching is still here in this world. So we can still consider him a present Buddha. In the future, when this Buddha's teaching, Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching, is gone, and it will end sooner or later, like all things, all the words, all the events, everything, all phenomena are impermanent. So Buddha also predicted that at certain times, what is called the Dharma ending age, the Buddha's teaching will disappear from this world. And at that time, Shakyamuni will become a past Buddha, right? And there are going to be future Buddhas. So we know that Buddha is not unique. It's not like there's only one Buddha. For example, in the sutras, the past Buddhas, many past Buddhas have been mentioned. One of the most well-known are the 7 past Buddhas, or the 7 most recent Buddhas that appeared in our world. Shifu has listed this in section 17.3. They are Vipassana Buddha, Shiken Buddha, Vishvapu Buddha, Kwakuchanda Buddha, Kanakamuni Buddha, Kashyapa Buddha. Probably only the last name you are a little bit familiar with, Kashyapa, because our Buddha has a major disciple. His name is Mahakashyapa. So Kashyapa is a common name. So these are the 7 past Buddhas, and they are mentioned once in a while in the sutras. For example, in the Sutra 42 chapters taught by our Buddha, Shakyamuni, one of the chapter says that it is a teaching from the previous Buddha, Kashyapa Buddha. Now, are there any connections between the past Buddhas and the present Buddhas? Of course there are, in the sense that a present Buddha may have been a disciple of a previous Buddha. That would totally make sense. Another connection is that the teaching the Dharma as taught by any Buddha would be identical in the sense that the principles are exactly the same. So if Shakyamuni Buddha taught the emptiness of all phenomena, any previous Buddha would teach the same. Of course, they will be in their own language and expressed in different ways, using different examples. And so this Dharma, this truth as taught by a Buddha will be eternal. It's something that will never change. Okay? It's like in physics, the law of gravity applies everywhere in the universe, or almost everywhere, except in very extraordinary circumstances, like what they call singularities. But basically, it applies everywhere. It's universal. So the Buddha's teaching is universal. Universal both in terms of place in this world, in different world, and universal in terms of time, in the past, in the present, in the future. Okay? So, a little bit about the present Buddha, or Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha is also known as Gautama Buddha. Gautama is the family name of Shakyamuni Buddha, and his given name is Siddhartha. And Shakya is actually the clan, the tribe that he belonged to. So Shakyamuni Buddha, Shakyamuni means the sage of the Shakya clan. So he's obviously the most accomplished in terms of spiritual practice of the Shakya clan, or of anyone in this world. Shakya can also mean benevolence. So Shakyamuni means someone who is benevolent, but someone who is also very still. Muni means stillness. That's one of the meaning of Muni. So the mind is in absolute stillness, in nirvana, but then capable of being benevolent to all beings. That's what Shakyamuni means. Okay? And in Buddhism, only one Buddha is needed in one so-called Buddha land. So the Buddha land is the region of space that has the teaching of a Buddha. So it's as far as what a Buddha can teach, within a certain space. Now this space is not just earth. In Mahayana Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha teaches not just here on earth, but he teaches in other world systems, maybe like solar system that we haven't discovered, but he is capable of teaching on the order of 10 to the ninth or a billion such worlds. So that is one Buddha land, one trichiliocosm. Now, but there are certainly worlds beyond those billion small worlds, and that will be a different Buddha land. And there are different Buddha lands in all directions, in the north, in the east, in the west. Like Amitabha is a present Buddha in the land of Amitabha, in the Buddha land of Amitabha. Okay, the land of infinite bliss and infinite life. So the sutras also talk about present Buddhas in the east, west, north, south direction. Yeah. Sometimes when our Buddha gives a Dhamma talk, light will come from other Buddha lands to, in a way, to show praise, how wonderful it is that the Buddha is teaching this profound Dharma. It's kind of nice in a way. And they are future Buddhas. The next Buddha in our world will be Maitreya Buddha. Now he is a Bodhisattva, a very advanced Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva. So that means Maitreya's cultivation is to the point very close to unsurpassed complete enlightenment. So Maitreya Buddha figures prominently in many sutras. And in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, Maitreya is also a major player, although he doesn't feature in the Heart Sutra. He features in other Prajnaparamita Sutras. A little bit of interesting or cute information. The Buddha statues or Bodhisattva statues of Maitreya in China, I think probably everyone has seen one before. And that's the image of a very happy, chubby Buddha with a big belly, a very big belly. And he's just always bearing his belly and always smiling. Big, big smile. So whenever you see this Buddha statue, everybody can't help but smile. All right. So that's the image of Maitreya in Chinese. However, of course, Buddhism came from India. The Maitreya Bodhisattva statue in India looks totally different. It is often depicted as a scholarly person, like a thinker. Yeah, so he sits and then he's contemplating, and he's slim. He's nowhere like the fat Buddha. Okay, so why is that? Legend has it that there was more than 1,000 years ago, there was a monk in China, and he looked like what we see as the fat Buddha. He's very chubby. He's so fat that he has to bear his robe to show his belly. To cool off, he carries a big bag on his back, and that's all he has. Everything he owns is in the bag. All right, and he was a very carefree monk. He had no permanent monastery, so he just travels, and then he gives teaching or help to people as he encounters them. One day, the monk passed away. They finally just died by the side of the road, and then there was a poem next to him. The poem basically says that this monk is an incarnation of Maitreya Bodhisattva. So from there on, the Chinese have always carved the statue, made the statue or the image of Maitreya Bodhisattva to look like him. So that's where the fat Buddha come from. But then, it could be just the Chinese food. We don't know, right? Okay, so here's a question for you. Maitreya Bodhisattva is going to be the next Buddha in this world. But there are certainly more future Buddhas. Who will be these future Buddhas? Where do they come from? What do you think? Where do these future Buddhas come from? Do you think you can become a future Buddha? Okay, let me say a little bit more about the eternal truth or the Dharma that the Buddha teaches. There's one saying that is quite famous by the Buddha. It goes like this: the sun may freeze, the moon may burn, but the Four Truths taught by the Buddha will never change. Yeah, the sun that rises from the east every day is very hot. It gives all the heat, energy to the earth. And the moon is cool, cold. It reflects the light of the sun, right? But then Buddha says the sun may freeze, the moon may burn, but the Four Truths taught by the Buddha will never change. That means no matter what kind of drastic changes happens in this world, no matter how long in the future. We could have big earthquake, big flood, big fire that covers the whole earth. But the truth, Four Truths refers to the Four Noble Truths. Basically, the Dharma taught by the Buddha will never change because they are the eternal truths. They apply everywhere at all times. Okay? Now, interestingly, if you know a little bit about astronomy, our sun in the solar system is a big ball of gas, right? And so one day it's gonna die. It's gonna burn off all its material and it's gonna die. Here is how our sun will die, according to astronomers. It will turn into something called a red giant and give off so much heat. It's gonna expand into a big, much bigger sun. And it's very, very hot. It will burn up Earth and Moon. So the moon may burn. But then the sun, this happens right before it goes into the last phase. The last phase is that after that big burst, the sun will turn into, from a red giant, into something called a white dwarf. A white dwarf. And that dwarf means it's smaller. It shrinks much, much smaller. And then it cools and cools and cools until over billions of years, it's going to be freezing. So the sun will freeze. And then it's going to shrink and shrink and become so dense. And ultimately, it uses up all its energy and it dies. That's how the sun dies. Isn't that interesting? So, the truth taught by the Buddha will never change. And we are so fortunate to have encountered the Dharma. And the Dharma says, like Shakyamuni Buddha, who once was an ordinary person, eons ago, he was an ordinary person just like you and me. An ordinary person, you or I, by way of prajna paramita, can become Buddhas. And that is the truth that has happened. It is happening right now, and it will happen. So, by way of prajna paramita, Buddhas of the past, present, and future attain Anuttara Samyosambodhi. So, will you be a future Buddha? And if you want to, what would you do? By way of prajna paramita, by studying, cultivating prajna paramita. This is how all Buddhas become Buddhas. So prajna paramita is called the mother of all Buddhas. It gives birth to Buddhas. Okay? One last point about this section. If you remember a little bit earlier in the Heart Sutra, it says there's no wisdom and no attainment. And now it says, by way of prajna paramita, Buddhas attain Anuttara Samyosambodhi. So is that a contradiction? Do you attain something or do you not attain something? What do you think? To answer this, Shifu will use some examples. You know, a gold mine. So you got the ore from the gold mine, and then you want to turn into pure gold, right? So what do? You burn it, you pound it, you give high temperature, and you get rid of the impurities, and eventually you end up with pure gold. Now, when you extracted the pure gold from the gold ore, have you gained anything compared to when you had the ore, but it was still mixed with impurities? You have this much ore, and then you end up with this much pure gold. When you extracted the pure gold, have you attained anything? Have you obtained anything? Have you gotten anything new? In a way, you can say no, because all the gold was already in the ore. In another way, you can say, yeah, there is something new that I obtained because with pure gold, I can do so many things. I can make it shiny. I can make it into a jewelry. I can make it into, a gold foil for the Buddha statue. Compared to when it was mixed with impurities. So in the same way, our mind is like that. You can turn your mind into something like pure gold or purer mind. And that's the real jewel, the three jewels, the Buddha jewel. But when it's mixed with all kinds of impurities like greed, anger, ignorance, there's not that much we can do. And so that's where the power of the Buddha comes from. It's just like pure gold. You can do so many things with it. But with the gold ore, there's not that much you can do with it. Our mind is like that. So is there attainment or is there no attainment? Another example would be a pearl, a beautiful, perfect pearl that's wrapped in mud. And then we wash away the mud to reveal the pearl. So when it is a mud ball, and then later it is a beautiful pearl, shining pearl, have you obtained anything new? So, this Buddhist path toward complete enlightenment, does it take effort? Yes, most certainly it takes effort. Do you get anything new? Well, you answer. Okay? All right, that concludes this section. And next, we'll look at the very last part of the Heart Sutra, the mantra part. Let us close our eyes and review what we have learned in this lecture. We talk about the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. What are some of the main points? Who are the past Buddhas? Who is or who are a present Buddha? And who can become future Buddhas? And then, do you believe that the Dharma is the eternal truth? What does it mean to be eternal truth or universal truth? And what does it mean to an ordinary person like you and me? Okay, let us make a dedication. May the merits of our deeds reach every part of the world. Sentient beings, large and small, all attain enlightenment.